All right. This is video taken by a phone of surveillance photo of video. And this guy, Brian Thompson, I think is his name, CEO. He comes walking out here. I think he has a blue shirt on. And the assassin walks up right behind him. Now, I'm going to stop it. So there is the CEO, a blue jacket. And there's the assassin. So I'm not going to play it any further than that. But I want you to look at this firearm. For my firearm experts in the audience, is this I really can't tell from there, but that's kind of a long barrel for an up close and personal, in my opinion, unless this is a suppressor. For my firearm enthusiasts, what do you think? I mean, you're going to have to carry this firearm with you for this up close and personal assassination. And you would think that in that scenario, you would want maybe a snub nose. But instead, it's got this protracted barrel. And I can't really tell from here if that barrel is, it looks a little thick to me, honestly. So it looks like it's a suppressor. Thoughts? What is that, Arden Party? I'm not sure. I don't recognize that word. Buddy Duddyful says it's a professional hit. Stumbling says, why the giant backpack? Change of clothes? Good guess. That's what I would guess. Wing It Production says a Mac 10. No, I can't. Nah. Not impossible, but nah, I don't think so. Oh, well, Rod, okay. Is a British commando weapon. Let me look it up. Oh, wow. I've not seen that ever before. It's a .32 caliber. And it looks, is that big fat barrel, is that a suppressor? Does it function as a suppressor just naturally? Yeah, that was the other thing that the assassin did, is the gun jammed. And he was able to break the jam loose. He hand racked it. Yep. Artificer is saying, yeah, broke it loose. Klum says that's what he thinks he's seeing as a suppressor as well. For White Wellbeing says, notice a bystander escape at the bottom right of screen after the first shot. The assassin was focused on the victim, precisely. Yeah, I think it was a woman there. And I noticed that the sound that we can't hear, because this is a video of surveillance. If there is sound on it, they didn't have it turned up, or so I doubt there's sound, but I don't know. She didn't seem to respond like I would imagine being taken at unawares by maybe a .32 caliber going off right beside her. Okay, so Arden Party says it is an integrated suppressor. And Stumbling says he did. That was the other thing, was when the firearm jammed, he didn't panic. He just kept re-racking it until it broke loose and then kept finishing the job to make sure that Brian was dead. Not going to weigh in on the technical, but anyway, it's throwing lead at his head. What motive, I wonder? So I'll pull up the story in just a second. We'll see what they say. Just quickly go through it. But what I think is interesting is we have this CEO at the very top of this health insurer that provides health insurance, maybe the lion's share, the vast majority of health insurance to Medicaid, Medicare, the federal government, federal employees. And suddenly, before a regime comes in, a month away, a regime is going to come in that's going to be cleaning house, or at least this is what they're saying. And they're going to be coming in to clean house. And there might be a lot of questions about COVID, about the vaccine, about who knows what other kind of corruptions that are going to be investigated, medical or tangentially medical related, medicine related. And then suddenly, a month before that regime takes office, this high profile in the know guy is shot to death in clearly what appears to me to be a professional hit. The guy rode up on one of these electric bicycles from the city that you just discard. He's perfectly covered up. The weapon has what appears to be a suppressor on it, and the woman that's in the video doesn't jump like a firearm going off without a suppressor. I mean, for those who don't understand, there are different types of suppressors, and they do better or worse job on the weapon, and they're reducing the sound and often also any sort of muzzle flash. But it's not silent. In the movies, it's like, and maybe they do have suppressors. I've never seen one like that where it just goes, but there's still a crack. There's still a noise. It's just not as loud. And you know what? If this was a professional hit, they may have even had a load that fired underneath of sound speed. So it didn't have the ballistic crack of breaking sound speed on top of the explosion of the cartridges going off in the firearm. So that would make it even quieter. She did react, but the witness, but not like you would imagine if you pulled out like a 38 or even a 32 and you started, I mean, it's loud. When you go to the range, you're ready for it. You know it. And so it doesn't hit you as much. But if you're just walking down the street and somebody starts blazing with a 32 caliber, that's loud as hell. So she seems to react as though it's a suppressor, maybe even a round that is slowed down so it doesn't have that ballistics crack. What is the proper term for that ballistics crack? Is that what it is? And as he's shooting, the gun jams, and he very calmly moves through the jam, fixes the jam, and then finishes the assassination, and then calmly leaves. So to me, this really stinks of an assassination, and then you have to ask a professional hit, and then you have to ask the question, with a month, given the context, did this Brian Thompson know quite a bit? Was he not really trustworthy to others in the know? And so they wanted to get rid of him to protect themselves. To me, since I'm not a big white booby that just believes whatever the internet or the television is going to tell me, my healthy cynicism says that's what's happening. My healthy cynicism says to me, Thompson knew some really shady stuff being at the top, and very well had to, who knows, but it could be a lot of things. It could be knowledge about vaccines. It could be knowledge about a lot of things. Who knows? And of course, all that knowledge is good things about Big Pharma. And they decided that he was not reliable. Maybe even he was already in conversation. Maybe he had already talked to people who were, he thought were working with Trump, or maybe they were. But it was discovered, he was being monitored, and it was discovered, and they decide this is not like a big leap. What really stretches the bounds of credulity is that all over the internet, people are saying, oh, this is just some disgruntled person who didn't get their payout from the insurance company. That's everywhere. Don't you think that's odd? I think that's more than a little bit odd. Because when else has that happened? Why are so many people, and I let me put people in quotes, why is it that so many people are saying, and then actual people maybe being persuaded to say that this was somebody who's, maybe their mother or a loved one didn't get the money that they needed or the treatment that they needed from this colossal insurer, and so he just went and killed him. Just some disgruntled guy that went and killed him. Some angry guy because he lost a loved one, or he isn't getting the money for his treatment, so he just went and killed him. How is this like figured it out? If insurance employees were being killed all the time, health insurance employees were being killed all the time, I would maybe be, inclined to say, wow, was it another one of those? Was it another one? That never happens. My God, if health insurers were getting knocked off left and right for not covering people's treatments and what have you, I think we would have a much more lenient health insurance when it came to who was going to get paid out, who was going to get treatments. I mean, that would be in the news everywhere, every day. And so all of a sudden, for people to just dust it off, and it reminded me of a father that did act out against a villain. And we've talked about it once before. He enrolled his son, and I don't know, maybe you can help me with what state. Was it Alabama? Was it Texas? He enrolled his son in karate. The karate teacher happened to be a homosexual male who was also a pedophile. And since pedophiles are a protected class on YouTube, we know that a bunch of them are good. But this particular one was not so good, because he molested and raped the little boy at karate practice. And then when it looked like it was going to end, he decided to flee Alabama or Texas or whatever it was to California with the man's son, his little boy. Fled to California. Well, they get to California and he gets caught. And so they bring the child back, and they're going to bring him back as well. And they do. And they fly him into an airport. The father is able to find out when he's being brought back. And the camera crew, the news is there to videotape this child rapist. And again, some of them are good because they are protected class on YouTube. And to being brought into, he's cuffed and he's walking with two detectives. And they walk by a bank of phones, and the father is on the phone. Not really. He's just holding it. He spins around and he's got like a 357, I think, and blows the guy's head right off. And then gives up to the detectives, and they take him and they cuff him and they stuff him. And that is a crime of passion. If your mother needed a treatment and the health insurance wouldn't give the treatment, then A crime of passion would look much more like this. How did now this guy who kidnapped this little boy, took him to California to rape him repeatedly, it was in all the news that he was being extradited and brought back. Everybody knew, it was in the news, that he was being brought back on this day. So the dad very easily then could show up at the airport and just wait all day long. He's being brought back, extradited from California, brought back on this day. He could just go hang out at the airport. He knew where they had to fly into because he was being brought back. Brian Thompson, nobody knows where he is. How did this crime of passion know that the CEO of this major health insurer that supplies the lion's share of healthcare to the federal and state governments was going to be right there at that time on that day? Crime of passion? No. Did he just blow him away and he's out there with his face and everything like this father was and just like, screw it, put the gun back in the belt and walk off? No. This guy was in full like regalia, to not be identified, a backpack, obviously, or most probably with other clothing, a firearm with a suppressor, what appears to be a suppressor on it, calmly moves through. That dad that blew that karate instructor's head off, there was nothing calm about it. He wouldn't have been able to like calmly work through. It was a revolver, but let's say he wouldn't be able to calmly work through. This guy calmly and methodically went through. Like he'd been trained many times to do this. Many, many times. So for me, by far the weight of evidence is in favor of this being a professional assassination and probably a consequence of this guy already talking, or they feared he would talk and expose others. How much would, for the billions that Big Pharma makes? I mean, seriously. And who knows what else? Who knows what else? Then the guy with his e-bicycle rides off into the park and disappears. That's not a crime of passion. This was in my opinion, a trained murderer. A trained and paid murderer. And the fact that we are seeing this explanation all over the internet says to me it's being pushed by people in power. So that tells me this was not like a disagreement that he had with some wealthy, powerful person that decided to just knock him off. He offended some wealthy, powerful person who had the money and the contacts to have him knocked off. This strikes me as a hit by the state because it makes no sense to conclude that this was some disgruntled insurance victim. Absolutely not. And no one in their right mind could instantly think that with a total paucity of that sort of thing happening anywhere. Anywhere. And let me hear your thoughts. Tag me. But I'll take a look at the story. So thoughts go out to this guy's family. They weren't involved in whatever he might have been involved. The Ivan the Horrible says Jason is making sense. Yeah. He said, Klump said, can we see the bike number? They are activated with a debit card. Probably not the shooters, but it's a trail. Precisely. And I don't know. We'll take a quick look at this story. JK160 asking about how did he know where Thompson would be? Exactly. How would he know? This is much more like a compartmentalized thing that governments can do. Where's this guy going to be? Where is he every day? Where does he go at this time? Same coffee shop, leaving a restaurant. He's heading down the street now. He's going to be in front of whatever that hotel was, the Hilton or whatever it was, in 2 minutes. Information relayed, all the info the assassin needs. And maybe even the people trailing him, so compartmentalized, they don't even know. Or maybe it's like an assassin group. Who knows? There are so many of, folks who were in the military, former military, but it doesn't have to be that. And it could come from any place in the world. If it's the anti-white oligarchs, if their establishment, if that's really what's pushing, and you'll see more and more of this, disgruntled payee or payor. And then, what would be interesting is to see if there ends up being, I don't know if they had the time though, to create a scapegoat for this, but it looks like, hey, I would not be surprised if there are killings going on everywhere. I don't mean like hundreds or anything, but that we're not hearing about. I wouldn't be surprised as Trump is coming to office. Covering their bases. Ardent Party says it's not hard to slip an AirTag into someone's pocket. Correct. Could have been by someone else because this guy, the assassin, was dressed fully like that. Maybe it wouldn't look weird, him walking up beside the CEO somewhere else of this company. Godfather Part 4. So, without getting lost in the weeds of speculation, remember, don't ever do that, by the way. Don't ever get lost in the weeds of unknowable details and speculation about motives and all of this kind of stuff. Even if it sounds interesting, it's just going to end up being a colossal waste of time.